Welcome back to ComQuest. I'm glad you're here. This space is for quiet moments, fast action on screen, and real stories that remind us how good people can be. The game that I'll be playing again this episode is Wizards of Legends 2. Behind the gameplay, you'll hear true stories from everyday life. Ones that show compassion, connection, and courage in quiet, meaningful ways. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin episode 2. Story number 1. The late shift and the leftovers. A single father worked the graveyard shift at a hospital loading dock, always tired. One night, a nurse walking to her car noticed he was eating vending machine chips. She paused, then turned around and came back with a full plate from the staff lounge. "We always have leftovers," she said. "You shouldn't go hungry while helping keep this place running." It wasn't just a one-time thing. From that night on, a quiet rotation began. Nurses left notes, snacks, even warm meals tucked where he'd find them on break. He never asked, and they never made a show of it. It was simply kindness, passed in paper towels and post-it notes. A reminder that some shifts are long, but you're never invisible if someone's looking for ways to care. Story number 2. The teacher's grocery line. A middle school teacher stood in line with groceries after a long day. In front of her, a student she recognized was fumbling through her pockets, clearly short on cash. The girl looked embarrassed, clutching 2 frozen dinners and a loaf of bread. Before the cashier could say anything, the teacher stepped forward and covered the difference. The student looked up, surprised, and whispered, "Thank you. I didn't know what else to do." The teacher just smiled and said, "We all need help sometimes. That's what communities are for." A small moment, gone in seconds, but for that girl, it was enough to feel seen and not alone. Story number 3. Umbrella in the Rain. A man walked through a storm, carrying groceries in ripped plastic bags. A stranger passed with a large umbrella, then turned back. Without a word, she walked beside him all the way to his bus stop, keeping them both dry. "You didn't have to do this," he said. She replied, "No, but I wanted to. You look like you needed a little peace today." He never got her name, but for the rest of the week, every time it rained, he thought of her, of how gentle people can be, even when the world feels cold. Story number 4. The runaway dog and the morning crew. A golden retriever sprinted across traffic on a rainy morning commute. Cars screeched to a halt. Several drivers jumped out, blocking traffic while some coaxed the dog into their arms. Within minutes, strangers had formed a chain, slowing traffic and calling local shelters. A construction worker offered his vest to calm the animal. An hour later, the dog was safely back with its owner, an elderly woman in tears. She hugged every single person on the scene. That morning, in the middle of chaos, kindness became a team effort. Story number 5. Coffee shop connection. A young woman sat crying in a quiet corner of a coffee shop. No one noticed except for the barista. On her next break, the barista brought over a drink and a muffin, with a napkin that read, "You're not alone. I hope this helps, even just a little." The woman didn't say anything, but when she left, she wrote a note of her own. "You reminded me that people still care. Thank you for being the reason I didn't give up today." They never spoke, but sometimes the best conversations don't need words. Story number 6. The gas station gesture. A young couple sat in their car at a gas station, looking worried. They held a baby in the back seat and were counting coins. A man at the next pump watched quietly, then walked over and slid his card into their machine. "Fill it up," he said. "I've been there." They tried to protest, but he shook his head. "Just pass it on someday." He left before they could even get his name. It wasn't just fuel they got that day. It was grace in a moment of uncertainty. Story number 7. The Stuck Grocery Cart. An elderly woman struggled to return her grocery cart to the corral as wind picked up. A teenager in a hoodie ran from across the parking lot to help. She smiled, thanked him, and said, "Most people just drive away." He shrugged and said, "My grandma raised me better." It wasn't a big moment, but sometimes small help at the right time is the most human thing we can give. Story number 8. The Skate Park Wallet. A teen found a wallet at the skate park, worn with a student ID and some cash. Instead of ignoring it, he walked 3 blocks to the address of the license. A frazzled mom answered the door and gasped when she saw it. "My son's been looking everywhere," she said. The teen handed it over and turned to leave. She called out, "Why'd you go through the trouble?" He shrugged. Seemed like the right thing to do. The smallest decisions often say the most about someone. Story number 9. Apartment Window Concert. During lockdown, a violinist began playing music from her apartment window every morning. At first, it was just background noise, but soon people opened windows, sat on balconies, and listened. Someone brought a guitar. A child clapped along. Eventually, they clapped every night at 7 p.m. Less for the music, more for the moment of togetherness. Even when things are hard, we can still find ways to harmonize. Story number 10. The Tired Nurse and the Free Meal. A nurse finished a 14-hour shift and stopped at a diner, exhausted and still in scrubs. When she went to pay, the cashier smiled and said, "Someone covered your meal. Said to thank you for everything you do." The nurse looked around, but no one made eye contact. It didn't matter. She left with full hands and a full heart, reminded that unseen kindness is still kindness, and it lingers longer than we know. Story number 11. The Library Late Fee. A young boy returned books to the library, clearly nervous. He whispered to the librarian, "I couldn't bring them back sooner. My mom's been sick." She nodded, took the books, and smiled. "Don't worry, I've waived the fee." The boy's eyes lit up. "Really?" She handed him a new library card. Books are for everyone, especially when life's tough. That card became his lifeline that summer. A quiet act of forgiveness gave him a place to belong. Story number 12. The Airport Charger Swap. A woman's phone battery died during a layover, and her child started crying. She looked around helplessly, all outlets taken. A teenage girl noticed, unplugged her own charger, and offered it. "It's almost full anyway," she said, smiling. They sat in silence for 20 minutes. No small talk, just understanding. When the woman's flight was called, she squeezed the girl's hand. "You gave me more than power. You gave me a break. Thank you." Story number 13. Snowstorm Soup Drop-Off. During a blizzard, a family across the street noticed an elderly man hadn't left home. The mom cooked a large pot of soup, and the teenage son walked it over through knee-deep snow. When the man opened the door, he teared up. I haven't eaten a warm meal in 2 days. They left extra in containers. He called it the best soup he'd ever had, not just for the taste, but for the timing. Story number 14, The Train Apology. On a crowded train, a man accidentally bumped into an older woman, spilling her coffee. Before she could react, he pulled out a napkin and said, "I'm so sorry. Rough morning?" She laughed, tension gone. Rough week. He offered to buy her another. She declined, but they chatted the rest of the ride. 2 strangers, 1 spell, and a little grace made the world feel gentler that day. Story number 15, The Lost Dog on Elm Street. A stray dog wandered into a neighborhood, muddy and limping. A kid on a bike followed it for blocks, keeping it safe from traffic. Eventually, he brought it to a porch where an older woman gasped, "You found Max." She hugged the dog and the boy. Turns out the dog had been missing for a week. She slipped him a $10 bill, but he waved it off. Just glad he's okay. Story number 16, The Quiet Commute Gesture. Every morning, a man boarded the same bus with his young daughter. She always clutched a worn teddy bear and looked around anxiously. One day, the bus driver handed her a small sticker. "For being brave," he said. She beamed. After that, it became routine. Tiny gestures, a wave, a smile. Months later, the man stopped the bus driver and said, "She used to dread this ride. Now she looks forward to it." A minute of kindness changed a child's whole morning rhythm. Story 17, The Airport Stranger. A mother traveling alone juggled bags, a stroller, and a toddler in meltdown mode. Just as she looked near tears, a woman in line stepped forward. "Want me to hold him while you get your ticket sorted?" The mom hesitated, then nodded. The stranger rocked the child gently, humming until he calmed. When it was time to board, the mom hugged her. "I don't know what I would have done without you." They never exchanged names. Just grace passed hand to hand. Story number 18, Late Night Tire Help. A college student was stranded in a parking lot with a flat tire. He didn't know how to change it and had no one nearby to call. A delivery driver nearby noticed and pulled over. "Pop your trunk," he said. They worked together under flickering lights, hands cold but steady. When it was done, the student tried to pay. The driver shook his head. "I've been there. Just help the next person." Story number 19, Forgotten Birthday Balloon. A cashier noticed a little boy looking sad while shopping with his mom. She overheard them whispering that they couldn't afford a birthday treat this year. When they checked out, the birthday was surprised to see a shiny balloon tied to his bag. The cashier smiled. "It fell from the ceiling, and I think it's yours now." The boy lit up. Sometimes magic doesn't cost anything, just timing and a little attention. Story number 20, A Hand on the Subway Rail. A man began shaking during a panic attack on the subway. No one noticed. Then a woman reached out, placed a hand near his on the rail, and whispered, "You're safe. Breathe with me." They breathed together for 5 steps. He nodded, eyes red. She patted his shoulder once and got off. She never asked for anything, just gave a moment of safety when the world felt loud. Story number 21, The Rainy Walk Home. The boy walked home in the pouring rain, hoodie soaked, shoes squishing. A passing cyclist stopped, pulled out a spare poncho from his backpack, and handed it over. "You'll get sick like that," he said, then rode off without waiting for thanks. The boy wore it all the way home, a little drier and a lot more hopeful. A stranger's small foresight became a shield on a soaked and lonely walk. Story number 22, A Final Goodbye. An elderly woman sat on her porch each morning, waving to school buses and joggers. One morning, she wasn't there. A few neighbors grew concerned. By afternoon, word spread. She had passed in her sleep. The next day, children left flowers on her porch steps. One sign read, "Thanks for making every day feel noticed." She hadn't known most of their names, but she gave something to all of them. Presents. And that's where this run ends. Same boss, same lesson, same frustration. I was really hoping to get past it this time, but I didn't. Sometimes, even when we give it everything, things just don't break our way. But what matters is that we still showed up, still tried, still stayed kind. And that counts for something, especially on the hard days when it's tempting to quit. I hope these stories gave you a little light to hold on to tonight. Even in the middle of chaos, there are still people choosing good. Still people helping, listening, caring, quietly making things better one choice at a time. And I'm really glad you're here, listening, breathing, being a part of this with me. Until next time, I hope you get some good sleep tonight. You're doing great, just by being you.